Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. New details on the deadly shooting in Atlanta, what we've learned about the suspect and the officer who lost his life. The race to fight multiple wildfires with more hot, dry weather on the way. And Vice President J.D. Vance meeting with key allies before the high-stakes summit between Putin and President Trump. First, the deadly attack in Atlanta. The 30-year-old suspect now identified. Police say he fired multiple shots into CDC headquarters. The complex locked down, along with nearby Emory University, as officers rushed to the scene. Rookie officer David Rose shot and killed. The Marine veteran leaving behind a wife and 2 children, with a third on the way. Tonight, the search for a motive. The growing threat from wildfires, with dozens burning in the west. Fire crews now straining to put out the flames, with more hot, dry conditions ahead. Plus, severe storms in the plains turned deadly. Power knocked out for thousands. Our weather team tracking it all. Also tonight, Vice President Vance meets with key allies in the UK ahead of next week's summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Alaska. President Trump says Ukraine and Russia may have to swap some territories to end the war. Tonight, European leaders are demanding Ukraine have a seat at the table. Bystanders run for cover as shots are fired in the middle of New York's Times Square. Several injuries reported. What touched off the violence? The frightening injury during a preseason football game, how it brought the teams together in solidarity. A spectacular return from space. A crew of 4 splashes down to end a 5-month mission. History on the diamond. For the first time, a woman is umpiring a regular season Major League game. And America Strong tonight, the remarkable reunion, how these World War II veterans reconnected 81 years later.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this Saturday. I'm Whit Johnson. We begin tonight with new details in that deadly attack in Atlanta. Police identifying the suspect who opened fire near the campuses of the CDC and Emory University. The gunman perched on the rooftop of a CVS, shooting and killing a police officer. New images tonight showing multiple bullet holes piercing the windows at CDC headquarters. At least 4 buildings were hit, but no employees or visitors injured. Students at Emory University were told to shelter in place. Police officer David Rose was killed. The 33-year-old Marine veteran leaves behind a pregnant wife and 2 children. The attack prompted a massive police response. Authorities say the shooter was armed with a long gun, and 3 other firearms were recovered at the scene. The suspect, 30-year-old Patrick Joseph White, was also killed. Investigators have not revealed a motive. ABC's Faith Abubey leads us off from Atlanta.
Tonight, authorities revealing the identity of the suspected killer after a shootout near Emory University and the Centers for Disease Control. One DeKalb County police officer killed in the gunfire.
This officer responded to the call as he was trained to do. And during that incident, he received gunfire and he lost his life in this incident.
The suspect also killed in the incident. The alleged shooter, Patrick Joseph White, a 30-year-old man from Kennesaw, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta. Neighbors say the suspect occasionally did odd jobs around the neighborhood and lived here for years.
We heard the story on the news, and I just never thought that it would have been the guy right down the street.
That shooting starting just before 5 p.m. on Friday. Multiple gunshots reported at this CVS.
You can see they've boarded up the front door where gunfire punched through the glass. The CVS is directly across the street from the CDC. Some of the bullets striking several buildings on the property, including that one. Bullet holes dotting the windows.
Emory University sending out this tweet urging students to run, hide, fight. Sources say the suspected shooter was on the roof of that CVS. Police arriving at the scene, confronting the shooter. The suspect allegedly turning and firing at police, killing 33-year-old David Rose, a Marine veteran who joined the DeKalb Police Department less than a year ago, leaving behind a pregnant wife and 2 children.
This evening, there is a wife without a husband. There are 3 children, 1 unborn without a father.
The suspect later found dead inside that building.
He had been struck by gunfire. We do not know at this time whether that was from officers or if it was self-inflicted.
And with the director of the CDC debriefing with staff members this morning about that shooting, neighbors of that suspect telling me he was just a regular guy with some quirks about him. I spoke with his father. He declined to comment on the shooting. Investigators have yet to reveal a motive. Whit.
Still a lot of questions in this case. Faith Abubey, thank you. Now to the dry and hot conditions fueling dozens of wildfires in the West. Fire crews making progress against Southern California's so-called canyon fire. Evacuation orders lifted and the fire is now 28% contained. But the threat from other wildfires is far from over. Here's ABC's Alex Stone.
Tonight, as extreme heat and low humidity bear down on the West, it's a race against time for firefighters to control flames before even hotter weather arrives next week.
Firefighter safety is utmost importance to us, making sure that the men and women out there stay hydrated.
At the Canyon Fire in Castaic in northern Los Angeles County, firefighters battled intense flames to save homes. In these canyons, it's like this everywhere. This fire immense. All that's left behind is this gray and white ash. Firefighters gaining containment now with 5,300 acres burned. In San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties, the massive Gifford fire has scorched over 100,000 acres of mostly remote land. Over 3,600 personnel are battling the fire. In San Diego, progress is being made on the Roadrunner fire. Containment numbers are rising. And in Meeker, Colorado, the Elk and Lee fires closing in on the town of just 2,300 residents.
Poor Meeker, everybody's freaking out and it's very scary for everyone.
All of Colorado's firefighting aircraft are deployed to the state's western slope. In Nebraska, severe storms turning deadly. At least one person was killed by a falling tree. Power knocked out to tens of thousands. And back here in Castaic tonight, firefighters say they are making great progress. Containment numbers are going up and those evacuation orders have been lifted. Whit.
Some encouraging news. Alex Stone, thank you. And more than 40 million Americans are under heat alerts. Let's get right to meteorologist Dani Beckstrom from our New York station WABC. And Dani, we're dealing with the heat, but also dangerous storms on the move tonight.
Right. We're going to start with those strong to severe thunderstorms firing up as we speak tonight. Whit, this is in parts of the plains through the upper Midwest. Let's get right to the radar. A severe thunderstorm watch in portions of Colorado and Nebraska until 9 p.m. local time with large hail and gusts up to 70 miles per hour possible. This same system slides in storms capable of producing flooding downpours from Kansas to Wisconsin as well. The flood watch there due to a level 3 out of 4 risk for flash flooding tonight through Sunday. This is considered a significant risk from Kansas City to Madison. Additional rounds of heavy rain keep that flood threat in play for this area through Monday. Heat becomes the headline in the Northeast. Temperatures turning up into the work week. I hope you're ready for 90s to make a comeback here in New York City. Whit, we'll see those by Monday.
Okay, we'll prepare for that. Dani Beckstrom, as always, thank you. Now to the U.S. meeting with allies ahead of President Trump's high-stakes summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Vice President J.D. Vance met with Ukrainian and European officials earlier today in Kent, England. What we're learning about those talks and reaction from President Zelensky, who was left out of the upcoming summit. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selina Wang.
Tonight, concern across Europe as President Trump prepares to meet with Russia's Vladimir Putin for a historic summit just days from now, without Ukraine at the table. Vice President J.D. Vance meeting European allies and Ukrainian officials today in the UK. A U.S. official telling ABC News the talks produced significant progress towards President Trump's goal of bringing an end to the war in Ukraine. This after Trump missed his own deadline to impose punishing sanctions on Russia. Instead, Trump agreeing to a face-to-face meeting, marking Putin's first with a major Western leader since Russia invaded Ukraine more than 3 years ago, and his first visit to the U.S. in 10 years. Zelensky holding a flurry of calls with European leaders today, warning that everyone can clearly see Putin's tactics. He fears sanctions and is doing everything to bail on them. He wants to gain territorial spoils for the second time already. French President Macron warning the future of Ukraine cannot be decided without the Ukrainians. This after Trump suggested a peace deal would involve exchanging territory.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
And according to the Wall Street Journal, Europe and Ukraine have presented its own peace plan to top U.S. officials, including the Vice President and Secretary of State. It stipulates that ceding any land must be backed by ironclad security guarantees, including potential NATO membership for Ukraine. The plan rejects Russia's proposal to hand over Ukrainian-held parts of the Donetsk region, according to the Journal. The summit now set for Alaska, territory the U.S. bought from the Russian Empire more than 150 years ago. now a place where the U.S. is closely monitoring the military actions of Russia and China. The Arctic becoming increasingly vital as global temperatures rise, melting the polar ice sheets and opening up new sea lanes and shipping routes, vital to all three countries. And tonight, the White House says that President Trump is still open to a trilateral summit with both Putin and Zelensky. But for now, they're moving ahead with just Putin. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has agreed to these talks in Alaska and have already invited President Trump to meet next in Russia.
Selina Wang, thank you. And tune into This Week tomorrow morning. Jonathan Karl speaks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on President Trump and Putin's upcoming summit in Alaska. The White House is escalating its battle with Harvard University, now threatening to seize the school's lucrative patents worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Let's bring in ABC's Morgan Norwood. And Morgan, this is just the latest move in a month-long feud.
Hi, Whit. Yes, this standoff between Harvard University and the Trump administration is certainly escalating tonight. Trump administration now threatening to seize or license some of Harvard's most valuable patents. In a letter to Harvard's president, the Commerce Secretary ordering an immediate review of federally funded research programs, claiming that the university breached contract requirements. Now, Harvard tonight is denying this allegation and sharply condemning the move, calling it retaliatory. In a statement to ABC News, writing, "Technologies and patents developed at Harvard are life-saving and industry redefining." Now, according to the university's website, it holds more than 5,800 patents and maintains more than 900 technology licenses with more than 650 industry partners. All of this comes, though, after the White House froze billions in federal funding, accusing Harvard of civil rights violations for its handling of anti-Semitism on campus. Negotiations there are still underway, but Harvard is saying that it takes anti-Semitism seriously and will continue fighting it with urgency. But look, we have seen this before. Just this week, Trump demanding $1 billion from UCLA, and then just last month, Columbia University agreeing to a more than $220 million settlement with.
Morgan Norwood for us tonight. Thank you. Now to that frightening scene during an NFL preseason game between the Detroit Lions and Atlanta Falcons. Lions safety Maurice Norris taken off the field after a hit to the head. Visibly shaken players gathering in prayer. The team's running out the clock instead of resuming play. Tonight, new details on his condition. Here's ABC's Olivia Rubin.
Detroit Lions defensive back Maurice Norris is recovering in the hospital tonight.
Oh, there's a big hit.
After this terrifying injury that brought last night's preseason game to an end. Norris going in for a tackle in the fourth quarter against the Atlanta Falcons, but during contact, his head appearing to snap back. Emergency staff treating Norris for 20 minutes before an ambulance rushed him to a nearby hospital.
At this point, per New York, this game is suspended.
Both teams emotional, coming together after the game was called off.
And now they're just going to come in to pray. Oh my gosh.
Today, Norris posting on Instagram, quote, "I'm all good, appreciate all the check-ins and love."
It's just an eye-opener. It hits, it hits a little different, and, it puts things in perspective.
With a few short weeks until the regular season, head injuries a concern in the NFL. The NFL says concussions during the 2024 season were down 17% from the year before and the largest drop since 2021. This season, the NFL saying they're continuing to try to limit avoidable head contact as one of its safety priorities.
There's been no update today on Norris's medical condition, specifically what that diagnosis may be, and of course, when he may get back out on the field. Whit.
I know many looking forward to his full recovery. Olivia Rubin, thank you. Next tonight, Mexico's president is rejecting the use of American military forces in that country. This follows reports that President Trump has directed the Pentagon to go after Latin American drug cartels the administration labeled as foreign terrorist groups. Here's ABC's Christian Cordero.
Tonight, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum adamant the U.S. will not use military force in Mexico in its crackdown on drug cartels.
Estados Unidos no va a venir a México con los militares.
Sheinbaum responding to President Trump's directive ordering the Pentagon to prepare options for the possible use of military force against certain drug cartels. Two U.S. officials tell ABC News Trump is targeting cartels they labeled foreign terrorist organizations. The president dismissing questions on any possible plan.
Latin America's got a lot of cartels. They've got a lot of drugs flowing. So, we want to protect our country.
According to one U.S. official, the use of military force against cartels is not imminent. The president's directive, the latest escalation in his vow to crack down on the flow of drugs and immigration. Trump, through both terms, has sent thousands of National Guard troops to the southern border and more recently to Southern California. The administration in February designated 8 cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. U.S. officials argue the administration cannot treat them like local street gangs.
They have weaponry that looks like what terrorists, in some cases armies have. They control territory in many cases.
Now, the designation of foreign terrorist organization gives the government more power, but it does not single-handedly allow for the use of military force. So, Whit, it's unclear what exactly the government is considering here and what can be done legally. Whit?
Christian Cordero, our thanks to you tonight. Now to that massive protest in Israel, tens of thousands rallying for the hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. This after the Israeli cabinet approved the prime minister's plans for the IDF to take over Gaza City. A major highway was briefly shut down, some calling for a national strike to, quote, shut the country down. There's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Saturday, including a spectacular homecoming for a NASA crew after months in space, and the woman who just made Major League history. Next tonight, chilling video just released of a workplace attack in Phoenix. It shows truck driver Zane Hammond firing a shotgun toward one of his former employers who was not hurt. Another manager then overpowered Hammond, disarmed him, and put him in a chokehold until police arrived. This happened nearly 2 years ago. Hammond pleaded guilty to attempted murder last month and was sentenced to 29 years in prison. A chaotic scene overnight in New York's busy Times Square. Bystanders ran for safety as gunshots rang out. 3 people were shot. All are expected to recover. Police say it started with a fight between 2 teenagers. A 17-year-old suspect was taken into custody. When we come back, the trailblazer who's earned her spot in Major League history. To the index now, and mission accomplished for SpaceX Crew 10. Their Dragon capsule splashed down today off Southern California. On board were American astronauts Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, along with crew members from Japan and Russia. They spent 5 months at the space station. Their replacements arrived there last week. In Atlanta today, a first for Major League Baseball.
And with that first pitch, Jen Powell has officially made history.
Jen Powell became the first woman to umpire a regular season game in the majors as the Braves hosted the Miami Marlins. Powell worked more than 1,200 games in the minor leagues over 10 seasons before getting the call-up. Still ahead here, America Strong, World War II veterans, and the reunion, 81 years in the making. Finally tonight, America Strong, 2 World War II veterans brought together in the most unlikely way.
A remarkable reunion, decades in the making. 101-year-old Tom Fitzpatrick served in Italy during World War II.
I was a radio navigator on a B-17 bomber.
A few years ago, Tom met college student Tyler Boland, who was on a mission to interview all living World War II veterans. Tom believed he was the last living member of his unit until recently when Tyler found Stanley Eisenberg, also 101.
I was what they called the ground crew armorer.
Stanley and Tom both served in the 15th Air Force, 96 Bomb Squadron, 2nd Bomb Group. Thanks to Tyler, the two reconnecting for the first time 81 years later.
Hi, Tiger.
Amazingly, they were living only 15 minutes apart.
Put them over in that big trip.
Yeah. Swapping war stories.
And all of a sudden, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, his machine guns go off and fire into where we were standing as close as I am to him.
Oh, jeez. Nobody got hit, I hope.
No, because the two of us were a mile away in 30 seconds.
After all this time, a chance to shake hands, all because of a young man with a passion for history.
Just meeting somebody that was in my outfit was a special treat.
They haven't seen each other in 81 years, so that experience was really special.
People think you forget what happened 80 years ago, what I did and what other people like Stanley did. I'll try to keep those memories alive. So God bless us all.
American heroes, what a special moment. I'm Whit Johnson in New York. Have a great night.
David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. And now,
ABC's World News Tonight has won the Emmy for Best Live News Program for the 3rd year in a row.